Anyway, first off, congratulations on your nomination.
Thank you so much, Michael.
Yeah, you're not new to this process, so here you are once again in this Cinderella moment where this magical time between the nomination and the actual awards, and get to be the belle of the ball, and everyone chases you. And uh, it's something someone who's a behind the scenes person all of a sudden gets a lot of attention, but you're aware of that. You doing okay?
I'm doing fine, thank you. Funny is that may be the way it should be, but it's not how I feel.
How
It's
does it
a
feel to you?
it feels first of all joyous for sure, and honoured because to be recognised by our peers is that I don't know is such a pleasure. I think might be the word. I don't know how else to say it, but I consider myself extremely lucky, but I always never take anything for granted.
Mhm. If I'm not mistaken, you came up through the BBC, did you not?
I did indeed, yes. I was very lucky though. After I did 3 years at university doing a hair, makeup, and prosthetics course, though, Michael, I had the grounding, and then they take you on and they train you for another 2 years. So it makes it close to what they train a doctor for.
You probably had no idea at that time when you were starting down this road of doing this that you would now be a multiple Oscar nominee and an
Yeah.
Oscar winner, and you probably didn't fathom that at that time. Would I be correct?
Nor not only not fathom, never strive towards anything like that either. That was never a goal. To get to first of all to get into the job was a goal, and then after my years of the BBC, then to be able to break into freelance was another huge goal because I had a family and it was important to be able to be with them. And then I guess hard work and luck with amazing projects um, was what came from there.
And now look at you. You're heading up one of the biggest films in the entire world, an incredible franchise that has so much legacy. It is really something. The film has such scope and is so ambitious. I know that you worked with John on another film, and I'm sure that's the reason why he asked you to come and take on this behemoth of a motion picture. Tell me about that process. Were you naturals, like he gave you the film right away, or were there other people in the running as well?
Oh no, though I absolutely know there were other people in the running, and my time with John had been something like I'm not quite sure, but 8 years previous, I think three. Yes, maybe 7 to 8 years previous. So if I never asked John why, but I think if I was to say why, in the time since I last worked with him to when he asked me to do Wicked, I had done a lot of films that I think were brought to life different situations, not period, not modern, but brought to life characters, but made them look real. And for John, a big thing of Wicked was he didn't want fantasy; it was to look real. He did want old Hollywood, and he wanted timeless. And I hope it was that my history or my CV, whatever you call it, was showing him that I could bring that to him. But the loveliest thing with John was he said as soon as we started speaking on the Zoom, because it was over Zoom, of course, he said, "I recognise your voice." And he said, "And you bring such a calmness and warmness to everything." He remembered me from Now You See Me, and that I think, Michael, is a huge part of our profession. It's our art, but it's also you have to bring yourself to the table so that they feel secure and then they know they're going to get what it is they imagine they need.
And it's so important for people. In fact, I was just having this conversation with my wife yesterday about different people, be it a bartender, a hairstylist, a makeup artist, or there's things that you're paid to do. And that is definitely a part of your job. But there's the other piece of that, which is the human factor, the familiarity, the confidence, and, let people get on with what they do. We empower them to do that. So I wholeheartedly agree. I do want to jump in because we have so many characters to cover and there's so much that's going on. I'm going to start with just the scale of this film. It's not like you can walk in with your makeup box and you do the film. There's an army of people that are behind you, and I've looked on IMDb and there's quite a few. And tell me about how to be able to do that versus a small film where you have a couple of talking heads and you can be super hands on that. You have to do a lot of delegation. So tell me your process of that, please.
I've been very lucky. I don't know. I don't mean to say carry, because you don't carry people. People want to work with you or don't. But I've been very lucky, and I work with the same team, be they downsized for something like Wes Anderson's Roald Dahl's, which are 1 and 2 handers, or upsized for the Indiana Jones or whatever, you know. And then the pleasure of having Bill Corso and Karen Myers join me as well. It's like an accordion. It goes in and out. But within that in and out, I've worked with the same group of people for many years, you know, lesser, bigger. And it really makes a huge difference when somebody knows knows my style now, let alone me applying what John wants. And within that, you pull together the right crew, the crew that suits the film, the crew that suits you as a person, the crew that you know is so brilliant that they can do anything. And that's why I had backing me on this one, Michael, the most wonderful crew. And to start with, I think I take it in bite-sized pieces, I think is a good way of putting it. And I knew on this film, I knew the theatre back to front because of my daughters. I knew the Wizard of Oz back to front because of my youth. But I also knew the Bound illustrations and everything from the books that I'd researched. So but the most important thing on this was making the green believable on Elphaba. Because if that part of your story didn't work, it would be very hard to sell everything else around it, from my point of view. And so that's why that was my first bite-sized piece, was getting the right skin tone models in, because Cynthia, of course, was very busy and not in the country, and starting to work out first the perfect colour green, and then secondly, how to make that green look like it's from within coming out, not painted on the surface, how to give it life that we haven't seen in our industry before. Certainly I hadn't. And that I had seen it looking like it's painted on the surface, but I'd never seen it be able to be held in a big close-up, as John Chu does, and look like it's actually flesh. Because if it didn't, huge moments of tears, etc., you couldn't sell the film.
No, and it's I think people, there's certainly folks that are maybe not as tuned into what our tribe does and may just underestimate, oh, well, you just painted somebody green, and not see that what you did achieve, what is amazing. I keep looking at those pictures and going, wow, that's it's fantastic. It's super subtle, but super effective. But it makes it, to your point, makes the character compelling and believable. And then we can kind of move on from the fact that she's green and to see her as a character. In the videos that I've looked of being applied, I see it being applied with a brush. I also see it being applied with an airbrush. Can you kind of explain that process, please?
How I'd like to start that is David Stoneman of makeup, who I know you know very well, Michael, through the years. He was with me on the journey, and once I'd found the green, and I didn't find it in an illustrator, and it was a bespoke green anyway. But David took it and put it into an alcohol base, and then it was the finding of a product that had a fluorescent or neon base in it that brought my work to life. And once I'd done that, David took it and he added a few drops of fluorescent yellow into my green base, and that was what started our magic. That was the light bulb moment, and that is what I truly believe is a really new and innovative project in our careers. But what David made through his own was he made me a green primer, to and primers in general in our industry, then to not only protect the skin but to prep it a little so it makes it smoother for the application of the foundation to go on top. So you see the primer going with the brush, you see the tattoo transfer eyebrows go on at the beginning because Cynthia has no eyebrows, and then the airbrush gone after that, and then everything that really makes it work was in the early days of some tricks from other films I've done, is you use tiny little freckles for youth, and it gives you have a story arc, and you fade them out as the person gets older. And it does add youth, and usually you add a cheap blush and everything, but the little freckles and the contouring of Elphaba's face embedded the green. And then you'll see in every light, because what I couldn't find was a green to work in all the different lights.
Yeah.
The neon gave me that because of the way neon reflects light, but you'll also see in all the different lights different quantities of that yellow base. Often just you get a flash through or a cheekbones or a jawline, and it's what makes it believable because it is what happens. It's just that once you add makeup, you're blanking that out. So the base of that makeup is what brought it back to life.
I was really pleased to discover that John really likes things analog and tangible rather than doing so much CGI. And I was amazed to see the sets and all that was done practical. But no doubt there's some CGI that's in the film. And being that Cynthia is green, did they have to do blue screen or do a different color? Because otherwise she would disappear in places. Yes.
Yes is the answer, the green screen. But we did blue. But it was also the wonderful Pablo Hellman was our head of visual effects. He he did all those wonderful monkeys, Dulcie Bear, Peter Dinklage as the goat. That was all from his camp. Even though our sets were like, one of the sets was the size of 3 football pitches, and God knows how many feet tall, but Pablo still had all the extensions onto that. Obviously, he had a huge job. And on the smaller picture, like mine, if the hat rubbed and if it was taken off in the take, if it needed repair, Pablo was that man. We could repair it very easy because we never sealed Cynthia into her makeup, so that our repair was easy. It was just never taking time from John. And if it was something within the take that John and Cynthia loved, or John and Elphaba loved, it was repairable in those small ways. But as you know, it was face, neck, hands that were her real green, and fill in her face. It was very important that we didn't lose our Elphaba within that giant hat, the big cloak, the black hair. So we made her hair lighter. We kept her hair tight. The tiny micro braids were perfect for not only for the character, but perfect as well for what Cynthia wanted to carry with her throughout her story. So there was a huge amount of background stories to the story of Elphaba.
And to see that you put appliances on her ears to cover all those piercings.
Yes.
Was there any other prosthetics in the film besides that?
No, we didn't. We weren't really a prosthetic. We did try, but in our early days, when redesigning Munchkins was very important to John because he wanted them to be tangible and real, as you've mentioned. He didn't want the fantasy of Munchkins of The Wizard of Oz, or even a nod towards that. But he wanted our whole film to be in reality. So we, once I'd come up with the red hair and the 100 shades of red and the texture to the hair, I wanted high foreheads. They were an agricultural people, our Munchkins. I wanted freckles. I wanted brown eyes. I wanted high foreheads. I wanted tan skins and the textured hair. And in the end, the high foreheads look fantastic, but one had to weigh up the cost of ball capping 350 people against getting them on the set for 8 a.m. And that's a lot to get on the set anyway, when you've got all the other work. So in the end, we went for either casting in high foreheads wherever I could in supporting artists and bringing them to the foreground. And often with Paul, they were hatted on top of our textured hair. But we never kept the hairstyles were always off. The hat might have pushed it forward. So you got the right impression. You just didn't, it wasn't done with fake. And as you know, Bok is a Munchkin in our land. And a very important point of Munchkins is you had to be able to spot them anywhere in Choose University, in the story to come, on the train platform. You always had to be able to know who was a Munchkin or not. And I think we succeeded with that, even if within our world, our viewers see it only subliminally. They're still immersed in it. It's still embedded. So we don't always recognize the obvious stuff like the green at the front, but we do absorb everything. And the background were the absorption.
How many wigs did you have in the film?
We had thousands upon thousands. We had, I think I actually got on Ari. I had 6 weeks for Ariana herself, but I think I had something like 14 Ari wigs because our DP Alice Brooks always wanted even our stand-in had to have the same hairstyle every day, be it Elphaba or Galinda or whatever the artist, Michelio, because she always wanted to see where the light might come through to their face. Now, I've always done a colour match, and I'm sure, Michael, in your history, you've always known that we do a colour match and stand-in. We rarely get the stand-in ready as if they're a double. But so we had the stand-ins, the doubles, the picture doubles, the hand doubles, the stunt doubles. So there were a huge amount of wigs, and then you might have 2 sets running, and you might have a location going down somewhere else. So it was, we did have some amazing numbers within it. So for Cynthia, we had 4 for Cynthia, but we had a total of 15. And for Ari, we had, I can never remember all my numbers. We had 6 for Ari, I knew that, and a total of 14. But within the film, we had 3,500 supporting artists, and we had 88 speaking parts, and every single person either had a wig, a hairpiece, facial, or something added to them because of the extravagance and the design of the story. Nobody walked on the set just with what they brought to
And then there's Michelle's wonderful wig. Michelle, like we've never seen her before. That's a beautiful design that you chose for her. And
thank you.
It's a great fantasy character that sets her apart. She has her very distinctive look. I did love that very much. What with all this lace that's going on, what are you using for adhesive for them?
Oh, well, everybody has their own adhesive in their kit, so everybody has a choice. And even I don't stick to one adhesive. It varies on which artist you're doing, your skin tone. If they sweat a lot, you might use one, and if they don't, you might use another. But I can't just name just one. Actually, I mean, I have a whole collection of. I have the Matthew Mungle, I have the Bluebird, I have the matte finishes, I have the super matte finishes, I have the ones for painting over the lace. I mean, it is enormous. Awesome.
A lot more choices these days for
yes, I
lace
know.
adhesive.
It wasn't always like that. Sometimes, I mean, a bit like the green, sometimes you do bring something totally new to our industry. And I've been lucky, and I've been able to do that twice in my life. And I feel lucky to have been able to do it once, but
And you had Jeff as the wizard, which is a very interesting choice to have him as that. He's such a distinctive personality, and where you insert him in a film, you get Jeff. And my understanding is that he has a personal, but she wasn't able to do much of the film.
No,
correct?
No, he had Vicky Lang. I've worked with Jeff quite a lot, and Jeff wasn't in the country, of course, so I was able, from the design side, I kind of knew what I would imagine for Jeff, and I spoke with him and sent him references. And I had his wigs built in advance and his facial, and then Vicky Lang, who makes up Jeff, she came in with Jeff, and we designed, cut, put on everything I had made. Jeff loved it, which is great because he's not a wig man. He doesn't like a wig. But as the wizard, it really needed that extra extravagant and foppishness that Jeff could bring, and gave him a change that he doesn't usually have. So gave him something with the wizard to use as his character. But sadly, Vicky got COVID. Just when we were still in the process of COVID then, when we started in 2022.
And it looked great. He brought a really wonderful quality to it. Ariana, I was aware of her because she's a household name. She's that uber famous. But what an incredible representation of a human of perfection. And then to find out her hair is actually dark. For you, it was something I couldn't imagine her not being blonde because of your transformation of her in the film. Tell me about that. Also, would like to hear about anything that you've done for skincare for her, because it looks like she has no pores.
Yes, it does look perfect, doesn't she? Well, she came in with her dark hair. Not only is she really, really dark haired, she's very, very textured haired, and really low hairline, and all of those things make something fake like a wig more difficult. But she wanted to go blonde very early on. We have got some references of her when she first arrived, dancing with her in the early days of choreography. But we went to the blonde really early on. And Ari was wonderful with her freedom. She came in, she said, I don't want to bring anybody with me. I'm coming in for this total new immersive experience on the Wizard, and you know your industry, and give me everything you want to do. And so I was able to choose my team, who went and did her, Gabor and Nuria, wonderful artists, and Gabor's still doing her hair with her. But we got her dyed blonde. She admitted to tell me that she had, when she first heard she got the part, however long prior months, she went blonde that night, and then she realized she shouldn't have done it, and then she turned herself back to black. And not so long far coming to me that it wasn't already party of what I would have to work with. And I know every hairdresser in this world will recognize what that means when you're going back to blonde again. But we made her back to blonde, but because of her really ethereal look that I wanted for her as the princess, when she was working for the Wizard, was I wanted to do for Shiz, we did warmer, blonder hair and shorter, and then for her story arc, we progressed into longer, much paler, much more ethereal, princess-like, and we kept her makeup very translucent and iridescent, sort of quite opalescent within her base and everything. So she had a reflective quality that complemented what was happening with Elphaba. And though it's very background, it 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 balanced my Elphaba completely, but it also gave Ariana that she has a wonderful skin, but the balance of the throw of the light made her quite iridescent and gave that absolutely perfect look. And it was absolutely perfect.
She wear lenses?
No, she didn't. Elphaba wore lenses. Jonathan Bailey wore lenses as Fiero because he comes from Winkyland, and that's a blue-based country in our palettes. Emerald is green, Munchkins are oranges and warm reds. So we did have Jonathan in lenses, and he has a story out, so you'll go and see a wonderful change there. And Cynthia, of course, with her wonderful nails, which was not only a nod to the Wizard of Oz, but it was also something that was very much carrying through Cynthia's Elphaba, and they had their own story, nearly all by themselves, which was wonderful too. There were some lovely silhouettes that John did where it really showed every part of the Wizard of Oz, but without us adding those prosthetics, which were not going to tell the story that John Chu wanted to relay to within his Wicked.
And you had some teeth. You had the almost the obligatory Mr. King coming and making all the teeth for you. Which characters had teeth?
Well, we did Ethan and Bog, and that's in the story to come. Nobody otherwise. Everybody was. We did a huge amount, though. We did a huge amount because we did a lot of trials. We did some bespoke lenses that we never used, but we were with iWorks. My lenses for both Cynthia and Jonathan were both off the peg lenses, that you or I can go and buy and change our colors. But within the teeth, we tried, obviously, for stuff for film 2 that we can't speak about, but nobody in film 1 wears them, which is.
And you shot 2 films at once. How long was principal photography?
Principal photography started in December 2022, and then we wrapped 2023 September with the strike, and then we picked up 2024 January. We picked up sooner, but for some reason we never got started once immediately before Christmas. And we ended February 2025, and then, is that right? 2024, and then we went out in 2025.
You've been immersed in Wicked for a while, my friend.
My dates were slightly wrong then. But anyway, you know what I mean.
When does the next film come out? Do you know?
I believe it's out for Thanksgiving this year.
That'd be great. It'd be good. It'd be wonderful to see that.
No, and can I tell you, as I did before, Michael, about the story about Fiero's horse, the wonderful artistry that went into him from David Stoneman?
Oh, you have to. Please share
Yeah.
the story.
Yeah, well, yeah, Jonathan chose Jack, his favorite horse of all time, and he was paramount in our story. It was Fiero's horse. He talks. Felspar is his name, and John wanted, as I said, a nod to the original film, but not within the fantasy rainbow colors. And it was to be in iridescent blue, really shiny and sparkly, and not sparkly, iridescent, really. So the blue really shone like the sky or the sea, more like. And we couldn't find again the product to paint on the horse. So I found the blue. I took it to David Stoneman, but the medium that David was putting the blue into didn't work in the horse's hair. So I found a product that's used on horses' hooves and oil, and David put the iridescent blue into the oil for me. And what we did was we had three, you have to have many horses, you know, your standbys and your stunts. We had 3 horses to get ready every time it was used. Every horse, including Jack, was shaved. Every horse was dyed black. Every horse was had hair extensions in their mane and their tail, so they all matched perfectly. And they were all plaited and dressed every night. And then they were all painted blue on the day. And then whatever horse was needed, be it the stunt horse for running, or the horse that's very good at standing still, or the horse that's very good at posing, whichever horse was needed for that moment was the one that we used. And that was a brand new product that had never been used before. The only thing I didn't succeed in there is it did transfer. So we had to be very careful of the costumes.
Very to use the oil as a vehicle for that.
It was wonderful.
David Stoneman, he seems to be one of the most indispensable people in the industry on that side of the pond. It's like, how did everybody get along before he came?
Well, like in the Singing Detective that I did in the 80s, you had to work it out for yourself. There wasn't a David in our world, and when Michael Gambon had to have his skin falling off his body, I had to work out how to separate the color from the flaking skin and still keep it believable in a close up. But once the wonderful David came along, David once made for me for Death at a Funeral, and I've just been talking to another podcast about it. David made for me. Have you ever seen it? Frank Oz directed it, Michael. I don't know if you've seen that film. Have you?
I have not.
No. There was a scene in it where it's wonderful, by the way. There's a scene in it where the old man who has dementia in the story, it's a comedy. He covers the bathroom in poo, and it's a comedy, by the way. And the actors who come into it, they don't know what it is, so they touch it and they put it on their hands, and then they realize. But David made it all for me. I mean, we covered a whole set in features, and without David, I wouldn't have been. Well, I would have been. I'd have made something, but not as marvelous as he made it. But it was a very funny moment in David's creative career, I think.
That's really something to have. He's almost a Wizard of Oz himself.
He is, yes.
And my understanding is that because of the fires in LA, we weren't able to have a proper bake-off. It all had to be done via Zoom. How was that for you, not being in the room, not being in the Samuel Golden Theater?
The world's a changing place, but for me, from my experience, and not with anybody else, I find that Zoom, one doesn't get the interaction. I mean, you don't need interaction. It isn't just about words. It's about feedback, and it's about a sense, and it's about a vibe that you're getting off people, and that's what's lost completely. And I also found I find that though in every walk of life, not just in our industry. And I also feel that what was very different for us is you have your time limit, and rightly so. But when you're trying to talk about such a vast project as Wicked, compared to maybe, I'll just say Demi Moore in Substance, where you're only talking about one character, and that one character isn't even that one character to the end. It's one character to 2/3 of what she does that's overtaken then by the next artist. I find that a very hard thing to do, and I wondered if maybe we all ought to get together and sort of think about how. I mean, it's only truly, Michael, everybody should have seen the films and made their own opinion. It's not about, but I do feel like, even talking with you today, Michael, I do feel like what we share, lots of people won't know or recognize, even our own peers. And if you just get 5 moments to describe that, nobody else knows about Fiero's horse, Michael, because I told you I didn't get a moment to say it at the Bake Off.
It's also hard because the rest of all the Academy members, when they're voting,
Mhm.
There's certain categories in which they really consider and ponder and whatnot. And there's other categories they make a choice within 10 to 15, maybe 20 seconds.
Yep.
And they're doing that because they're not invested into that particular category.
Yeah.
It's a tricky contest. And I think it's not maybe not always the film that we would choose wins.
Yes.
But it always feels good to be nominated, and always feels good to win, doesn't it?
Yeah. Well, and then the thing is, what I always say of life, never expect it, and then you'll never be disappointed.
Yeah.
I think that's quite important. It's joyous to get this far, and it's joyous to be recognized, and take that moment and run with it. That's what I say, because otherwise you're looking for too much.
Agreed. And maybe that's a good place for us to put a period on the end of the sentence.
Thank you.
It's so great to see you again. Great to be able to talk with you. And I hope that we can chat again when the next film comes out, because I'm sure there's more to see.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye-bye,
Bye-bye.
Michael. Thank you.